Who's winning? And who's up shit creek without a paddle? This is your stop for unbiased election projections with BS free talk, analysis, and one cranky politico's insight into the very future of the world you live in. Broadcasting from the gateway to the motherlode in Waterford, California. This is the Election Recon Podcast. And now, he's carpet-bombing partisan zealots back to the Stone Age by delivering cold, hard reality to the fanatics first class. Your host, Army veteran, political operative, and election junkie, Josh Whitfield.
Welcome to episode 10 of Election Recon. It is Thursday, October the 6th, 2022. Alyssa, 10 episodes already. Time flies.
It does.
Time flies.
Close to the election.
It still seems so far away to me. This has been a rough week. This has been crazy.
The closer you get, the worse it is.
Yeah, it's just like, can we just fast forward to the 8th already, please? For the love of God. So much election news this week. We're not going to be able to cover it all today. Again, welcome to all of you to the oasis of reality. And I am happy to finally be sitting in the oasis so I can drink from the keg of realism and not partisan bullshit, which I have been mired in, Alyssa, all week long in my day job. It has been insane. The burnout factor is real. The burnout factor is real right now. Anyway, today on the show, very excited here in episode 10 to have Kristen Olsen, former minority leader of the California State Assembly, current partner at Cal Strategies, a big player in California politics. I'm looking forward to having a conversation of not just politics, but just like how can we make it better? Because the world is absolutely effed up.
Yep.
It is effed up. Anyway, for all of you who have been with us through 10 episodes this season, thank you so much. Our audience continues to grow. We're still the McFoley of election shows. You know, we're not at 100K like some of these other yahoos out there. But you know, I think we're a little hole in the wall. We're a little distinguished. You know what I'm saying? We're that special place you don't expect to be a good bar, but when you walk in, it ends up being good shit. What do you think?
Good vibes.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm Josh Whitfield. That is my co-host, Alyssa Silva, the apolitical Gen Z representative of Election Recon. We're working on her. We'll see if we can rip some political alliance out of her at some point, one way or the other. Alyssa, cigar of the day. Yet again, another Rocky Patel, because remember I went to this like special event and I bought way too many Rocky Patels, so I'm going through them. This is a Rocky Patel Disciple. Not a common smoke for me, but I won it in a raffle, so I'm smoking through them. Rocky Patel Disciple, good smoke. Not one of my favorites, though. I prefer the sun-grown Maduros or the 60s, but it is what it is. You know, we're classing it up a little bit. I posted something on social media this week. I retweeted something or re-Facebook something where, you know, Jason from the horror movies, Jason.
Oh, yeah.
Ski mask. And it goes, what would you do, or what do you say if you wake up and this is what you see in your doorway? And then somebody posted, I would thank God that I don't have to go to work that morning. And I'm like, yes.
You feel it.
I agree 100%. This election cycle, I'm just over it, man. So over it.
Politics is hard.
I'm tired of people treating each other like shit. Everywhere I go in the world. Anyway, Alyssa, in the Grunt's perspective, some heavy-hitting shit close to home this week. We're going to talk about a family who was, I mean, it had to be some kind of professional. I don't know the details. The investigation's underway, but a Indian family in the county just south of us here in California. This is the state of the world today. A guy walks into their house, escorts them out, zip-stripped, at gunpoint. 3 adults, an 8-month-old baby, murdered. No rhyme or reason. Kidnapped and murdered. That's the type of crap that we see in the Middle East. This is the type of crap that we see in Mexico, quite frankly, South America. It's happening here now, and we're going to talk about why. So buckle up for that. Alyssa, let's go ahead and go into the election snapshot for the day. Wednesday's update, we didn't have too many. We had no flips this week, with the exception of maybe Georgia. We're attacking Georgia a little differently. We'll explain that here in a minute. But we're going to go ahead and throw the rating changes in our model this week. Not so much. Again, the model's starting to stabilize, but we're also experiencing, like, there's a drought, Alyssa, of public polls for congressional races. I don't know if it's that they're just cowards. They don't want to put it out because they were so bad in 2020. They were so wrong. Like, they're just not doing them. Or you know, you buy into the right-wing conspiracy theory that they are doing them, but they're not releasing them because they're terrible for the Democratic Party, and they don't want the Democratic vote to be depressed.
Interesting.
I really don't know. I'm not suggesting. I have no evidence to support either one, but it's got to be one of the two.
Yeah.
Because 2 years ago at this time, I mean, every day it was like 15 new congressional district polls every single day for the last 30 days, and it's nothing. We have nothing whatsoever. It's bad. I don't know why. Polling industry, as you know, drives me nuts. We're going to go ahead and put the non-flip rating changes in our model on the screen. This week, 3 for the Republicans, 2 in Texas. Texas 15th Congressional District going from tilt Republican to lean Republican. And the Texas 34th Congressional District is going from lean Democrat to tilt Democrat. So both those districts touch the Mexican border. And both of those districts are moving in our models because of Latino demographic shift. And what do we mean by that? We are seeing real, tangible, objective signs that the Latino vote in border states continues to move to the right. And that's going to be a big theme today on the show, especially with what's happened in Merced. Florida 7th, now from likely GOP to safe GOP. That's based off polling. 2 moves for the Democrats. Georgia Senate. Man, Herschel Walker is the gift that keeps on giving for Republicans. This guy already has a litany of baggage. So for those of you like you, Alyssa, you probably have no idea who Herschel Walker is, being a Gen Zer. Do you?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. It hurts my heart too, viewers. It hurts my heart too. Herschel Walker, huge football star for Georgia, University of Georgia. Georgia, huge college football state, the whole SEC, but Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
I see it.
Whatever. You know? Tennessee. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, right. Tennessee, Mississippi, right? The whole SEC, huge college football country. And as most privileged heroes anywhere in the world, when you're young and then you become rich and famous, you tend to do stupid things. And Herschel Walker has a litany of stupid things in his past. His argument is he was young, dumb, full of you know what, and he did stupid things. And, you know, he's a born-again Christian, and that's his past, and he's a new man now. But the past keeps coming to haunt him. The Democrats have been holding on to this attack for a while. This is their October surprise. They dropped it because they know what we know, what the Republicans know, what the mainstream media knows. The Democrat chances holding the Senate are moving away consistently. Georgia's a key battleground for the Senate. The insinuation that if the Republicans don't win Georgia, they can't win control of the Senate is a lie. I am sick and tired of hearing that. It's been all over the media this week. Georgia's the key for control. What happens if Republicans win Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada? Doesn't matter. Democrats could hold on to Georgia. Mm-hmm. So this insinuation is silly. Really, really silly. Matter of fact, if Republicans hold on to, if they win Pennsylvania, Nevada, Wisconsin, it's over. Remember, Republicans only need to win one seat. It's 50-50. The mainstream media is so corrupt. It's disgusting, including our local newspaper at the Modesto Bee. That's going to be a whole thing for another day. McClatchy newspapers, there's a lot of, I know some good reporters that work for McClatchy, mm-hmm. and when they inevitably lose their jobs because McClatchy is dying a slow but consistent death, as it should. I will feel bad for the good folks out there, but the far more absolutely, the reporters that work for McClatchy, especially our local McClatchy papers, might as well mm-hmm. just be an extension of the Democratic campaign arm. It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about opinion guys. The opinion editors, go do what you want. You're opinion guys. But the hard news journalists who write opinion pieces mm-hmm. drives me insane. But that's another rant for another time. Anyway, Herschel Walker, pro-life Christian guy, comes out that he probably paid for an abortion in the past with a baby mama that he already had a kid with. There's receipts. It looks bad. It's a scandal. But Alyssa, I'm telling you right now, I'm not sure the voters care. The religious right voted for Donald Trump. They did the math and they're like, okay, well, Donald Trump, porn stars, multiple affairs, divorced 970 times, billionaire, spoon up, mm-hmm. silver spoon up the butt. They still voted for him. Why? Because Republicans knew that Donald Trump was going to be with him on the worldview issues that are most important to them, i.e. the Supreme Court. And guess what? Republicans got paid off. It paid off, the Donald Trump thing. Because look at Dobbs v. Jackson, right? Republican voters know this. I don't think the media talks about this enough. Republican voters are becoming more and more like Democrat voters and are willing to plug the nose for candidates they don't particularly like to win nationally. I don't know. Anyway, Georgia Senate, as you can see here, has gone from tilt GOP to runoff. So we're projecting a runoff. The state of Georgia has a rule that if a candidate does not win 50% plus one vote, it goes to a runoff. We saw that in 2020 with both of the Georgia Senate elections. Republicans ended up winning the majority vote share, but couldn't get over 50% and then lost in a runoff special election. We are now projecting that the Georgia Senate is going to a runoff. And this scandal is a big reason why. However, we want to caution everybody. We need to see real polling. There were some snap polls that came out, and you could tell they're just total bullshit. They're bullshit. These snap polls that just come out to suggest that there's just no shame in the mainstream media anymore. There's no shame. The polls are nonsense. Next week, if we see some real polls that shows a shift back to Warnock, then yeah, we would say that Walker's in trouble. And we think he probably is. Because it's so close. That state's so close. This scandal's going to hurt. And and the Democrats have been holding on to this the entire year. Right on. That's the game. You could hate the Democrats for it. They've had this in the pocket for sure. Mm-hmm. And they played the card at the right time, and it's going to hurt. But we still don't know what the generic ballot is going to look like yet. And it is more likely that it's like R plus 4, R plus 5 than it is D plus 4, D plus 5. And if it's R plus 4, plus 5, I don't think this thing matters.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to see. Right here at home, California 9, that's the Harder Patty seat up in Stockton, has moved towards the Democrats. That's because of money. Josh Harder has carpet bombed Tom Patty this week. Carpet bombed him. You've seen some of the ads. I know that. We were talking about that. He hammered Tom Patty. And negative campaigning works, folks. Negative campaigning works. And Josh Harder, the Democrats and Josh Harder, man, we're talking a lot of money. I could not believe. And it was a nasty hit on Tom Petty.
It was.
It was brutal hit. But yeah, Josh Harder is one of the best fundraisers in Congress of all 435 of them. He's a fundraising machine. He doesn't fundraise a lot in the district. But we learned in 2018 the voters in the Central Valley don't care. They don't really care where you get your money. That doesn't play anymore. So Josh Harder gets a lot of money from the Bay Area, gets a lot of money from the Act Blue and Swing Left and all these machines from out of state. But he used to be a venture capitalist, so he knows a lot of guys with a lot of money, and they give him a lot of money. So Harder's money's starting to play here. We largely think the Democrats are putting the 9th congressional district out of reach, assuming we have a neutral generic ballot. Mm-hmm. Okay, if we start to see signs that the generic ballot is going like +3, +4 for Republicans, this seat's going to be in play for sure, regardless of the money. So grain of salt. It's not out of reach yet for you local Republicans that are watching this race, but the fundamentals that our model looks at, our model suggests that Josh Harder is winning the battle right now. And that is all of our rating changes. We'll take a look here. Republicans, because of that move of Georgia to a runoff, Republicans down to a 51% chance. So we still pretty much are calling the Senate a pure toss-up. But Pennsylvania the Pennsylvania Senate over the last 2 weeks has moved from closer to lean Democrat to closer to tilt Republican. So Pennsylvania very close to tipping in our model for Oz. And that's because Fetterman is a terrible candidate. He's terrible. He's terrible before his cognitive deficits and his health problems. And I'm telling you right now, I don't know, man. Pennsylvania's so weird. They just defy expectations every election. But I'm really struggling with the idea that people who actually give a damn about their state are going to vote for this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a disaster, especially the week after the president of the United States has been a disaster. Mm-hmm. He had another gaffe this week, open mic gaffe. Literally while his son is under legitimate investigation for multiple crimes. Okay. He literally says on an open mic, no one F's with a Biden. I'm like, dude, how much more mafiosi can you look, Grandpa Tony Soprano? Good grief. I mean, just handing Republicans gifts, Of course, the media doesn't jump all over it because they're in their tank for the left. But, some other huge hits to Democrats. OPEC's cutting back oil production it seems to me, at the request of Russia to punish the West. Gas prices are going up.
Yep.
For sure. Bad news for the Democratic Party. So, that's just the way it is. Republicans at an 85% chance in our model. No seat changes, so we're still projecting 17 seats for the Republican Party. And no changes in the gubernatorial situation as well. However, what's really interesting is in our model, and a lot of other models have already flipped Oregon to red. Mm-hmm. Oregon. It's crazy because there's a libertarian candidate there that's really playing. And so they're sucking a lot of the Democratic vote. A Republican might slip in. Our model, because we don't need jerk react to polling. Our model is hedged against it, but Oregon's close to flipping in our model as well. So that's really interesting. So we updated our polling ratings. Lauren and I did some homework this week in our very few free time. So you can see here that our polling was also updated. Mason-Dixon joins the top 10. Not one of my favorite polls, but it is what it is. I mean, the polls are so terrible. Folks, really, I would say look at our top 5, maybe 7 as decent to great polls. But that's how few. That's how disastrous the polling industry is now. It's that
Crazy.
Disastrous.
Yeah.
Okay. Monmouth, Wall Street Journal, Mason-Dixon, I don't personally care for. I know Lauren, she likes those polls, but I really don't care for them myself, personal opinion. Emerson, NBC, I really think the top 5 poll, and Trafalgar is close. I like what Callie does, but he's had some misses. He's had some hits. He just put out that pretty much New York is in play. That Lee Zeldin is down by 2, and if the Republican might win the state of New York, that's pretty much what he's showing in his polling. And if that's true, and everyone else is that wrong, I will literally bow down to if Trafalgar has found something that everyone is missing. I will bow down to that guy. No question about it. But it just seems to me like a real outlier. So I need to see like another poll back that up before I get too crazy. But we love Susquehanna. We love Atlas. We love Big Data Poll. Rich Barris. He's going to come up today, I'm sure. We had a reaction Monday about him that got us a lot of hate mail. So, and then of course, Investors Business Daily. You know, these polls are great. We love them. You know, our bottom 10, absolute garbage. You can look at them like garbage. I really, it's my opinion. I can't get Lauren. We have a threshold of 4. If you're 4 or higher in our rating, your poll is added in. It's weighted lower, but it's added into our model. I think anybody in our bottom 10 should be thrown out because that's how terrible the polling industry is. So Lauren and I will fight about that another day. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Real Clear Politics generic ballot average. Republicans down from 1 point up last week to just half a point this week. But we see this pattern. Republicans rebound, and then our go-to low-confidence pollsters come out with just a deluge of Democratic polls. So you can see here, Marist, NPR Marist, likely voter screen, Democrat +3. But when you break that poll down and you look at it and how it's weighted and how many Democrats they're talking to over Republicans, you're just like, really? Really? And I say this at the risk that somehow by some craziness they could be right and I could look like a moron on November 8th. But there's nothing fundamentally that would suggest this is going to be a Democrat-favored environment. Nothing but the wishes of the mainstream media, the hopes and the prayers. Marist, Morning Consult, YouGov. Absolutely, I'm telling you, I'm predicting, I could be wrong, but I'm just looking purely at the fundamentals. This is not partisan. Listen, folks, all you Democrats who write in every week like, you're just another Republican spewing your opinion out here and blah, 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 blah. All of 2020, we had Biden winning, and he did. We nailed the popular vote. We missed one state in the presidential election, Arizona and Georgia. I'm sorry, we missed 2 states. My bad. By the thinnest of margins, by the way. Missed one state for the Senate in 2020. Like, listen, when our model says Democrats are going to win, we're going to say Democrats are going to win. Our model is suggesting Republican victory. The Senate is a toss-up, to be sure. But all the trends are trending against the Democrats. When we look at the issues that voters care about, inflation, crime, cost of living, okay, this idea, now abortion's a big issue with Democrats, but not with independents and not with Republicans. Not with voters who say they are most enthusiastic to vote. It's all about their wallets right now, folks. It's about their bank accounts. That is more important to the voters than these ideological battles about guns and abortion and the rest of it. That's just a fact. And for the mainstream media not to say it is just a lie. It's a lie. Grow up and just report the news. They know the truth. They know the truth. It's frustrating. So Republicans at 0.4, but we'll round up to a half. We think this is bigger, and in our model, the generic ballot's at 1.4 right now for Republicans because of how we weight these various polls. But here we go. Politico Morning Consult. I swear to God, they're going to be the Quinnipiac of this election cycle. 2005 registered voters, Democrats +3. Whatever. So frustrating. It's malpractice that there's not likely voter screens here. Going to President Biden's approval rating, he is up about 1.1 points. He's at 10% disapprove, 53.1 disapprove of the president in the average, 43.1 approve. Again, a lot of low confidence polls. Reuters putting a poll out of not even registered voters. We're just going to talk to 1,000 adults. Just like, come on. Grow up. The Economist YouGov. This is great. It's a likely voter screen poll. The Economist YouGov has the president at 49% approval. Like on what planet YouGov economist are you living on? Stop it. Stop it. Come on. And listen, if I'm wrong, everybody should come to our comments and our Twitter and our social media and email and just blow me the hell up. If it ends up being a huge Democratic night, please come tell me what an idiot I am. But every fiber, all my experience, everything that I see in the model, there's nothing to suggest that the president is tied in popularity whatsoever. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Let's go to 538. I know you Republicans love 538. You know, again, we get these questions every week. Why do you use 538? Nate Silver, Nate Plastic, Nate blah, 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 blah. They say Nate Plastic as an insult to the guy, you know. Listen, because we want to show you multiple perspectives. We're showing you different people's stuff. So if we are wrong, you know, that you can do your own research and make your own conclusions. Republicans marginally better in there. It's still 2/3 for the Democrats, 1/3 for the Republicans. So I guess, you know, not marginally better. If you come down here like Nevada, they have Cortez Masto still favored to win. And I'm just like, there's been like 15 polls. I don't understand how 538's model works, right? I know it's the thumb's on the scale to the left, in my opinion, for sure. Mm-hmm. I think the evidence, I mean, look at 2016. They had Clinton at like, you know, guaranteed to win. And not I'm being sarcastic, but heavily favored to win. The point but you know, and it was a Trump victory. Like they've had so many misses. Like something's wrong with their model, right? It's too far to the left, clearly, and they know that, and they haven't fixed it. And like there's nothing, absolutely nothing, in the last 2 weeks of polling that shows Cortez Masto, the Democrat incumbent from Nevada, is in a good position. Every poll is showing Adam Paul Laxalt up. So I don't understand. I don't know what's going. I mean, the money is fairly even. Like I don't understand what's driving their belief that Cortez Masto is 50-50 with this guy. It's still close. It's going to be a close election. It's a battleground state, but come on. In Arizona, they have an 81% chance for Mark Kelly to win. I'm just like, I would love to just sit down with Nate Silver. I don't need to know the details or the secret sauce, but I'd love to see him, you know, make the dish, so to speak, because I don't understand this. It's hard for me to understand. You know, like Rich Barris and Big Data Poll, when he does his show, The People's Pundit, you know, he doesn't give the secret sauce out, but he gives you a general idea of how he gets to the end game. And he gives the layman the understanding of how he got there. Mm-hmm. It's transparent enough. There's no transparency, in my opinion, here at 538. You know, they kind of give a general overview of their model. They have 3 different models, but disaster. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. They have a 73% chance John Fetterman wins in Pennsylvania. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't get this. I don't know. Obviously, our model heavily disagrees. So 538 has it 67 and 100 for Democrats to hold on to the Senate, 33 and 100 for Republicans to take it. In the House, they have Republicans at 69% to hold the House. I don't get it. 31. Nate Cohn from the New York Times literally said, like, we have to take the Democrats' chances of holding the House seriously. What universe are these guys in? I mean, are you kidding me? Even in like the worst Republican night I can think of, they still have a majority of like probably 3 or 4 seats. Like, and that's like if all things go terrible I just don't understand. I don't get it. Anyway, here's there hasn't been an update since September 3rd from Big Data Poll and Rich Barris, but you can see they have the Republicans at 42.5 over the Democrats at 41.2 in the generic ballot. Rich is funding his public polling project, and you can go to bigdatapoll.com and donate. The public polling project is a crowdsource funded polling. Please give it to the more every little bit counts. The more you get this, the more good data we can get. So as somebody who's interested in accuracy, a good pollster, getting it right, I encourage all the viewers, right, left, or center, go give your money, because Rich Barris is pretty gosh darn good, especially on the national tests. And so give him Give them the money so we can get this public polling project done. I'd love to see Rich Barris go back into Arizona as well, and Pennsylvania again before this election's over. I don't know exactly if he's going to. I know he's going back to Arizona, but I don't know if he's going to Pennsylvania. But go to Big Data Poll. I'll show it on the screen actually. If you just roll down here to the public polling project, you can get this donate now. We're going to donate some money this week from Election Recon to Rich Barris because we want this funded. We want this funded so he can get out there and we can just get some good data. Like I said, there's just so few pollsters we really, really trust right now. So taking a look now at the election scorecard heading into the week. Updated yesterday at 5 p.m. The Senate, we have 50 seats projected for Republicans, 49 for the Democrats. Georgia heading towards a runoff, says our model now. So 50 to 49. Republicans, of course, need 51 to hold on to the Senate. Democrats only need 50 because Kamala Harris, the vice president, cast the tie-breaking vote. In the U.S. House, no change for us. It's 230 projected seats for Republicans, 205 for the Democrats. For governors, no change again. 29 governor's mansions for Republicans, 21 for the Democrats. State legislatures, again, no change for us. Upper chamber, including the state of Nebraska, 32 chambers for the GOP, 18 for the Dems. Lower chambers, 33 for the GOP, 16 for the Democrats. That was a lot. But there's so much election news this week.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I covered it all. But I am getting to the point of the election where it's true anger with the mainstream media and the polling industry. It's true anger. And I'm not somebody, I don't want to be one of these guys. There's enough of them out there. You got Red Eagle Politics, you got Rich Barris, you got, Jack Poe, who's a legend. You got these people who, there's enough voices out there critiquing these people. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like that's what our show should be about. But, I mean, for the love of God, reality I can't just say it's raining pigs outside when it's not raining pigs, right? Like, you have to call a spade a spade. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is, I am convinced the mainstream media and the polling industry is about to take even a bigger loss than they did in 2020 or 2016.
Maybe it'll be a wake-up call.
No, it won't. No, it won't.
Gotta be optimistic.
It would. They didn't learn anything from 16, 18, or 20. They don't care.
They should.
They just want to drive narrative. That's what it's become about. You want to know, like, everyone thinks politics is dishonest, and there's corruption, to be sure. Obviously, politics can be a dishonest business. I'm not saying it's not, but for the love of God, I think the biggest threat to the United States of America, the biggest threat is not left-wing Antifa stuff. It's not right-wing militias and January 6th. It's not BLM and rioting and all this stuff. It's not even our porous open borders, which I'm about to just frickin' destroy in the Grunt's perspective. I honestly believe the biggest threat internally to the United States of America is a dishonest media. The media has become so dishonest. And I'm not even talking about the cable news stuff. It's the networks. It's your local newspapers. The cancer has metastasized in journalism everywhere. It's stage 4. It's stage 4.
It's bad.
Journalists used to at least try in this country to call balls and strikes fair. Not anymore. Everyone's in the tank for one side or the other, and most of them are in the tank for the left. And that is unhealthy for any democracy and free-thinking, free-speaking people. At the Modesto B. Good grief. Listen, we're going to go ahead and go now to my interview with my dear friend Kristen Olsen. I'm very excited. We're going to take a moment from frustrations and partisan zealotry, and we're just going to woosah here at the Oasis. We're going to talk about, is there any chance of this country uniting again in these tribalistic times? I'd love to hear what Kristen thinks. We're going to talk about that right now in the interview segment. Let's go to Kristen Olsen. And welcome back to the Election Recon podcast. One of my favorite guests of all time, a good friend of mine, former client, former boss. I have nothing but positive things to say about this very intelligent and capable leader in our field and our industry, the former minority leader of the California State Assembly, former county supervisor, former city council member, current partner at Cal Strategies, and congratulations, freshly married, brand new nuptials to celebrate. Just got married a few weeks ago. Joining me now here on the Election Recon podcast, Kristen Olsen. Kristen, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Josh. I always enjoy spending time with you, whether it's on a podcast or in person. Lots of good memories.
Well, someone has to be the court gesture, and I enjoy filling that role quite often. Kristen, I'm going to let you, talk about yourself. You're better at talking about yourself than I am, but just for full transparency, for all the listeners out there, here at the Oasis of Reality, we are all about openness and transparency. I did used to be a client of mine when I worked at Meridian Pacific, and I've done some work for and with you in the past. So, I don't want anybody to think that, I don't have my own biases when you're a guest on my show. So, but good friend and happy to have you here. Why don't you go ahead and just give us a brief rundown on who Kristen Olsen is and a refresher on what you're doing now.
Sure. Thank you, Josh. So I've spent much of my career in elected office. Prior to elected office, I was in marketing and communications, media relations, both in the private sector and the public sector, but then spent 15 or so years in elected office, both at the local and state level. As you said, former assembly member and minority leader of the California State Assembly, former county supervisor, former Modesto City Council member. So with all those former titles, I like to refer to myself as a has-been because I think that accurately depicts my elected office experience at this point. And now, though, I still get to enjoy shaping public policy and being part of public policy as a partner at California Strategies, which is a statewide public affairs and advocacy firm. And I really enjoy the ability to roll up my sleeve, get deep into policy issues without all the politics that are part of elected office as well. So things are good. As you said, I recently got married. My 3 kids have gotten older and 2 of them are in college. So life is good. I'm feeling very blessed.
Yeah, that's how I know I'm getting old, is all my friends and former colleagues' kids are all in high school or graduating high school. So, and
Yeah,
I remember
crazy.
I remember when they were like knee high. So it's a crazy thing. You and I kind of did a switch. I was in the public affairs world, and I got into the ledge world, and then you left the ledge world and got into the public affairs world. So just kind of interesting how all that works out.
Yeah.
You have a plethora of political experience, especially here in California. But when you become a leader of a party, whether that's the majority or the minority, anywhere in any state, you really dip your toe into the national environment. You have to build national relationships to advocate or accomplish things for the state that you represent. Would that be fair?
Indeed. Yes, it definitely elevates you to a place where you're having to engage not just with the own members of your caucus, but also, as you said, with national leaders, with people across the state, as we try to craft solutions that are good for the people of California and across America. Definitely takes alliances. I always remember Senator Jim Brulte, a former majority and minority leader, saying politics is a team sport, right? And those who don't understand that aren't going to survive very long in that environment, much less be effective. And so knowing how to form those relationships, form those alliances across party lines, across states, across the nation is really important in the field of politics and public policy.
Normally I bring on guests here to talk about, the state of the election, where things are at. This is ultimately what this show and the Election Recon Project is trying to give a no BS look at election forecasts and prognostications. But I want to take a little bit of a break today because you and I have one similarity. We both kind of really got into the elected office world right around the same time, that 2009, 2010. And, it's been 12, 13 years since then. And I'm of the belief that when we first came into this industry and this business, things were one way. And then we have been through a tumultuous transition into much more tribalistic times. I remember when I first got into this business, there was a lot more cross aisle communication. There was a lot more compromise. There was a lot more deal making. You had the Gang of Eight in the United States Senate. You had the Blue Dogs. You had the problem solvers in the House. These things. I think state legislatures ultimately look up to DC on how to conduct business or get things done. And as it's become tribalistic from the top down over the years, I don't feel or see a whole lot of that anymore. Personally, I see the bases really punishing members of their respective parties for doing business across the aisle, and I personally think that's inherently dangerous moving forward. And that's probably super unpopular with partisan Republicans or partisan Democrats. But I'm also somebody who's seen the world, and we're living in dangerous times with Russia and China, Iran. We have real global threats that require national unity on some issues. And I think, even though there has been a pretty unified response to Ukraine in Congress, I don't know how much longer it feels like it might be slipping a little bit at the fringes. So the point I'm trying to make here is, or the question I would really like to ask you is do you agree? It's a two-part question. Do you agree that we are in undoubtedly more partisan, tribalistic times? And two, do you think that that's a permanent shift, that that's just the way it's going to be moving forward? Or do you think this is a pendulum swing that's about to come back the other way, and that we're going to see some more, reasonability in the discourse, responsibility in governance? What say you?
Both great questions, and such an important topic, and one that I've been passionate about for quite some time. I absolutely agree that we are living in hyperpartisan times. Not that we didn't see hyperpartisanship before, but it's definitely increased since I've been in office. I know even at the local level, right? We're seeing this at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. When I first ran for Modesto City Council, for example, my partisanship, the fact that I was a Republican, was largely entirely irrelevant. And today we see candidates running for city council where partisanship is very much an important part of the campaign. And I think that's unfortunate because there's so much more that can be done if the labels are left behind, right? And if we're really talking about issues, we're getting to know candidates and electeds as people, apart from their partisanship levels. And then certainly at the state level, there was always more partisanship because obviously you operate in caucuses of Republicans and Democrats. But when I was in state office from 2010 to 2016, there was still a lot of work that was done across the aisles. I think as one of many examples, the 2014 water bond that I was one of the members fortunate to be part of negotiating, that was a unity of Republicans and Democrats from various parts of the state working together to drive a solution forward that people had tried to do for 30 years. And we were able to get that done, but it never would have happened if Republicans and Democratic legislators weren't willing to sit around a table together and work that out. And we're just not seeing as much of that today. And not only are we not seeing that kind of reaching across the aisle to drive big policies forward, but we're actually seeing, as you described, hyperpartisanship, tribalism, where we're calling the other side the enemy now, as opposed to an opposition viewpoint. And I think that really does have an impact on deteriorating our democracy. And it's something I'm very concerned about. I've worked on it for a number of years. So I do think that there were glimpses of this, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, but it's definitely escalated. And I'm very concerned about it. Second question, can we move back to a place of bipartisanship again, where we're driving solutions forward that are crafted from a number of different ideological perspectives, backgrounds, geographies, what have you, demographics? And I'm hopeful that we can. It's hard sometimes for me to be optimistic, and it's easy to get sort of caught in the morass of discouragement over, is it only going to get worse? Because it's certainly gotten worse every year that I've seen in the last decade. But one of the things that gave me hope, a couple of years ago, I read a book by John Meacham called The Soul of America. And it reminded me, and actually it was the first time I had read some of the stories captured in this book, that we've had really dark times in America before, including dark times within political parties. And yet we were able to move past that. Things happened throughout history where unity was found again within parties, across parties. And so I am hopeful and optimistic that that could happen today, or not happen today. Certainly it's not going to happen today, but that could happen again, right? We've had these dark times before, some even darker times, arguably. And we've gotten past that to a place of bipartisanship and American unity again. So I am hopeful we can get there, but it's going to take a lot of work on the part of individuals, elected leaders, community leaders. And one of the very first things that I believe has to be done is people have to be willing to get out of their own echo chambers, right? These echo chambers, when all we do is listen to the same television station or the same network of friends or the same subculture that we're in, that aren't inherently bad in and of themselves per se, but it is bad when we block out and ignore all the other voices around us. And I think it gives us a false perception of reality. And so that's incumbent on each of us collectively to help each other with the awareness of the echo chamber we're living in. But more importantly, it's incumbent upon us as individuals to be willing to step out of those echo chambers. And it's interesting because oftentimes, and I've fallen in guilty of this at times as well, but we hear so many people talk about other people who live in these echo chambers, right? Well, these hardcore Republicans or these extremely leftist Democrats, right? And we're talking about it being their problem. And really, we have to look inside. And recently, I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues in the Capitol community, a very intelligent, experienced, successful woman who's been in the public policy arena for a very long time. And I was shocked to hear her say, well, no, I'm not willing to listen to anything else except MSNBC. And I don't want to. And I thought, wow, if some of our leaders aren't willing to do that, what can we possibly expect of, folks in our everyday lives? So it really starts with us, each one of us individually, to set an example for our communities, our spheres of influence of a better way.
Yeah, transitioning perfectly into my next point, because the folks, as I like to call them, the folks out there, the populace, the voters, the citizens, they often blame government for their problems, and I think that blame is merited in many cases. So I'm not insinuating not. I think government has a long way to go to get back to where it needs to be. I was just having a conversation with a Democratic colleague actually 2 days ago, and we were both laughing because we both, as young folks, we were fans of the TV show The West Wing, and we thought when we got into politics that's how it would be, and we would be able to single-handedly help change the world. And boy, did we learn quick that is indeed not the case. But to that point, to your point of, is it incumbent upon government to fix the problem, or do you still believe inherent sovereignty belongs to the people? Because I believe, and I've said this, and it's very unpopular, and I go and I speak to various groups and do grassroots trainings and talk to various activist groups about how they can be involved and more efficient in elections. And this is my job all the time. And they're all of the belief that there's nothing they can do to fix the problem. And I remind them that no, in this country, it's my belief that sovereign power remains with the people. So if now oftentimes in democracy we lose, and that's I think the folks are struggling to accept and handle the realities of loss in elections in this day and age. But I believe the people could fix it. But a lot of folks, voters on both sides of the aisle, believe it's incumbent upon the government to fix. What do you think is inherently who is ultimately responsible for fixing these social problems, the people or the leaders?
I believe it's the people. And that really is the fundamental tenet of what became the United States of America, right? The people leading and the ability to elect or unelect our leaders if we feel they're not leading in the proper direction. One of my more recent favorite quotes is by William Shakespeare. And he said, "It's not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves." And I really like that quote because I think more and more what we've seen are people and electorate who are expecting someone else to solve all our problems, right? The feds are going to come in and save us. The state's going to come in and save us. Our city can take care of it. Our county can take care of it. Some other entity other than myself is going to solve this problem. And what history has shown repeatedly is it's when the people, the voters stand up and say, we ourselves are going to be part of shaping a better tomorrow. That's when real transformational change takes place in this country and frankly around the world. I believe that's the effective way to make positive change in any community at any small scale or larger scale. And we really do, I believe, have to get back to the place where voters take personal responsibility for the direction that their government is leading them. Are we a direct democracy? No. And I think direct democracy, right, can lead to chaos. We're certainly a democratic republic, but it's still in a democratic republic up to the voters to take personal responsibility for electing our leaders who are representing us in the halls of government. And I'll give you a recent example where I feel that this concept has deteriorated a bit. Just this last weekend, I was walking precincts for a measure and was contrasting my experience that day with walking precincts when I very first ran for Modesto City Council. So when I first ran, this would have been 2004, 2005, knocking on doors throughout neighborhoods, almost everyone, if they were home, opened their door, had a conversation with me, asked questions, and told me they were going to vote. And I didn't skip very many doors in a neighborhood. Contrast that to now in the year 2022 in a high propensity voting precinct. Very few people answered their door. Even the ones where you could tell somebody was home, you could hear the voices, they didn't answer their door. And I was truly shocked at how many doors, how many houses we passed because the voting rolls showed they don't vote. I mean, on some streets, it was, I'd say 3 out of 10 houses were voters. That's really sad because at the end of the day, nobody has the opportunity to change the direction of a city, county, state, or nation other than the voters themselves. And if we're to a place where there's so much apathy and lack of enthusiasm for voting, then not much is going to change. And on the one hand, I understand it. I understand the sentiment of people feeling like their vote doesn't matter. But I think it's so important for us to talk to our friends, our family members, our neighbors about why it does matter. You and I have seen so many elections that have come down to a handful of votes. In some senses, in some cases, a dozen, right?
I've seen elections in Stanislaus County, in my hometown of Waterford, decided by a draw of a playing card. That's how
exactly. It's just amazing. And so those stories, we really have to get out there to remind people how important their vote is and how they really can make a difference in their community, because there can be a very stark difference between one candidate versus another in how they're going to vote and help shape our communities.
Yeah, I think, and that's a great point. I as a student of history, I'm very fascinated with the greatest generation, my great grandparents' generation, and I was blessed to know and grow up with them, and have a real relationship with them before they passed. And it was always foreign to me that my great grandparents had the ability to jump party lines, especially for the vote for president. And when you go back and you look at their history, I mean, you're talking about, right, both my great grandmother and great grandfather survived the Great Depression, World War II, Korea, I mean, this prolific time in history, right? And I will never forget. I asked my great grandmother in high school, like what makes you, my parents staunch Republicans. I have other family members, staunch Democrats. No way, even back then, that they were going to jump the line. And I asked my great grandma, what makes you look at it this way? And I'll never forget. She said, grandson, it's about the character of the leader, not the politics of the leader. And I didn't understand it at 16, 17, but I understand it now. And I think that's incredibly true. I mean, that's incredibly true. That's the character of a leader matters in crisis. That's the difference between the president of Afghanistan, who didn't even take 5 seconds to think about staying and fighting for his people and blowing out of Afghanistan, and Vladimir Zelensky, who at great personal risk and probably inspired a nation to a heroic defense. So character matters a great deal. And I think voters, you and I communicate with voters all the time, and there's not a day I get people who call in and be like, why do you send all these mailers, and why there's nothing of substance here? Like, why are you sending this to my house? And there's not, I just go, there's not a day I don't pray for the love of God to debate policy and issues, but that's not what the voters are asking for right now. It's all, superfluous tribalistic stuff and negative campaigning works, as and that's in many ways unfortunate. And the point I'm trying to make is it's really inherent upon the electorate to start educating themselves more, not just about issues and policy, but about the character of the individuals they're casting their vote for. And I think another prevalent problem has become one issue voters. How many voters do we talk to like, abortion? I mean, they could agree with somebody on 99 out of 100 things, but that one thing makes them shy away. Well, you know what? If I agree with someone 99% of the time, you can bet your rear end I'm going to cast a vote for them. Personally, that's just me. I mean, that's pretty good. You show me two people in the United States who agree 100% of the time on all issues, I'll show you two liars. And and so I really think that like that we've lost that. Like our older and wiser generations who are dying out to old age, I'm afraid we're going to lose that hunger to understand the character of a leader over just this. I'm voting all R, I'm voting all D. I think, and I'm curious to see what you think about this. I think the massive culprit first, it was primed by the reality TV generation and obviously 24/7 cable news, to massively detrimental things, I think, to political discourse in this country. And then the cherry on top, the thing that just lit the fire that has destroyed this, that has made the American electorate a mile wide and an inch deep in substance, is social media. And I think that ties right into your concerns about echo chambers, because social media has now provided, you can just turn on the TV channel you want to listen to, and there's really no true opposing views, or you can go to your social media group and not even leave your house and just, hear all the things that you want to hear. And really, I think that comes at a detriment to education. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a bit of a catch-22. I do agree with you. It does propagate these echo chambers because social media, as we have all been hearing, runs on these algorithms to where what you're fed on your feeds is similar to what you've expressed interest in. And so it does sort of propagate this echo chamber culture, and it's very concerning. On the flip side, one of the positive powers of social media is it's given folks the opportunity to directly communicate with people as opposed to having to rely on the mainstream media. And so it's a really challenging situation. I can see the pros, I can see the cons, because there's certainly bias in the mainstream media. I mean, it's really hard to break through that bias or the noise on channels that they control, right? And so the ability to have voices outside of that through social media can be a positive. But there's a lot that has to be sorted out. And on the whole, on the balance scale of the cost-benefit analysis, I'm still not sure for myself whether the pros outweigh the cons or the cons outweigh the pros. But it's certainly a difficult dynamic. For myself, I have chosen in the TV world, at least, for myself and my kids, at least while they're under my roof before they grow into their own adulthood, we literally watch zero TV news. Zero.
That's how it is in my house.
None of it. One time. Because I just don't think it's productive. And so the way I get my news is through print. And what I try to do is read a variety of different newspapers, everything from the local news to the New York Times to the Wall Street Journal to the Economist to the Washington Post, a variety of news sources, in hopes that by reading all of it, the truth is somewhere thread in between. Right. And I think that that's all we can, trying to go to original sources. But we're definitely in a more challenging environment in America for seeking truth than ever before in this hyper social media environment. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it may be artificially holding down our ability to grow subscribers or whatever on this show, but that's all my partners. We have two Republicans, a Democrat, and a truly true Gen Z apolitical independent working here. And so it's interesting when we have calls. So we have every Monday, we have like a staff call. We talk about how we want to make the show, what we want to talk about, what are important. We talk about various political issues. It's a weird dynamic, but you want to know what we find that we agree more often than we disagree because we're communicating.
Right.
And I think the inherent problem, the most major problem today in this country is a failure to communicate, just like the old rock song. And
I think that's so true. And it gets back to what you were talking about before too, with your grandparents saying character matters in a candidate. It's really difficult because the larger a community gets, the harder it is to have direct interaction with a candidate. Right. And so I think with you just talking about your staff person being a Gen X independent, we had some really prominent statewide elections this year in California with folks who were running as an independent. But in a state of 40 million people, it's extraordinarily difficult, I'd suggest impossible, to reach all the voters in a way that they know what you as an individual stands for. So without a party label behind you, they don't know how to define you if they haven't had the opportunity to interact with you directly. And that, I think, is one of the challenges facing our democracy as well. People, at least for today, have to run as an R or a D if they have any hope of voters knowing what they stand for. But that presents a very narrow view of a candidate as a whole. And it's a challenge that I'm not sure how we get past is these labels that don't appropriately define a candidate.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And as a good friend of ours says often, yard signs don't win elections. Money plays, voter contact wins elections, and driving your message, so it is a money driven game. There's no question about it. And the two parties have a monopoly on money raised and money spent. And until that is somehow broken, and I don't have an answer to it, we're going to be stuck in a two-party system in which it's going to be easy to not only just label, but it's going to be easy for the zealots on both sides to paint the other side with a broad brushstroke.
That's right.
And I try to explain it, because everyone outside of California looks at us as like this weird alien land. I go to Alabama and Oregon, New York, Texas, Oklahoma, South Dakota, whatever, and everyone is like fascinated, like we're completely different. Republicans are different than national Republicans. Democrats are different than national. It's weird, and there's some truth to that. There really is. We are a different beast out here. But that being said, I say, look, this idea that, and Democrats certainly have a supermajority in power here. It's felt from the top down policy wise. Yes. However, it's a misconception that Democrats are all marching in California to the same drum. You and I both know that's not true. I said, believe it or not, it's very rarely a Republican versus Democrat fight that's high drama in the building, the Capitol building in Sacramento. It's often Democrat.
It's within the own party. Yeah.
It's often, internal conflict within the Democratic caucus. So, and again, no one would know that. People just make assumptions and they hear what they have to say and they paint with these brushstrokes that I think is just detrimental to communication in general. When you have Democrats on television saying that all Republicans are fascists, terrorists, they're evil, that's what makes, to your point earlier, that's what makes people stay indoors. When you have Republicans out there saying that, Democrats are going to be the death of the country, they're not patriotic, they don't care about people or small businesses, and they're all evil. that's what makes people stay indoor. And it's making the polling industry, the prognostication industry much difficult because you have high levels of response bias and you have a high level of refusal to talk to pollsters now more than ever. So it's getting awfully complicated to poll. But, I think it gets back, and I think it's incumbent upon the folks to say, hey, enough is enough. We got to start talking to each other again. And I think COVID was super detrimental to that. It accelerated the problem because everybody was, locked away in their own worlds,
Right.
their own chambers, and that these 2 years didn't help. And, when you're by yourself alone with your thoughts or just a few people who agree with you, that's a breeding ground for conspiracy theory. And that's a breeding ground for I don't want to say extremism. That's not really what I mean, but it's a breeding ground for unreasonable thought. If you don't have someone challenging you intellectually, if you don't have someone challenging your worldview is going to, of course, move to the extreme. And
Right,
some of the best friends I have are ardent Democrats who I couldn't agree with on anything, but I've learned so much more from them than people on my own side because they've really challenged the way I see things. And I've changed personal policy positions and I've changed the way I've seen at the world. And I hope that I've done that for my friends on the left as well. When I say, hey, no, look, you think that I'm approaching this particular controversial issue from this point of view, but that's not it at all. I look at it this way. And I explain it in a new way to them that they just never considered before. And they've done that to me, vice versa. And I just think, man, communication is everything. If we can communicate again, this country,
then we could get out of this. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And the fact that people feel threatened, right, by those conversations is really sad because you're right. Having our worldviews challenged, our views challenged just makes us stronger in either believing them and know how to articulate those positions or in being willing to modify them, perhaps. And that exchange with each other is healthy. Right. It's the basis of democracy. And I agree with you. The way out of the situation we're in today is more communication, more dialogue, being willing to get to know people of different viewpoints as people, as opposed to just figures with a label.
I agree. We have to rehumanize each other.
Well said.
I really, really believe that. Kristen, we're short on time. You and I could talk for 5 hours on all these issues.
Indeed.
And so just real quick, because we are an elections politics show and you are a leader in the field, especially, a lot of targeted seats up and down here in California. I'm not going to ask you to comment on any specifically, but just real quick in 30 seconds or less, what do you, there's a lot of debate going on right now. There's not a whole lot of public congressional district polls out right now. There's a drought of that for whatever reason. The pollsters are not releasing specific race polls, especially at the U.S. House level. There's a fight between the mainstream media on the left and the alternative conservative media on the right over registered voter generic ballot tests versus likely voter generic ballot tests, and we'll have a whole debate on that another day here on the show. But in your professional opinion, where do you think this is going to be? A dead even electorate, slightly to the right, red wave, slightly to the left, blue wave? How do you think this is going to break down nationally?
Gosh, so hard to answer because I keep changing my mind.
Over the last today?
Several months, I keep changing my mind. Where I'm at today, nationally, I think it's going to be a slight edge to the right. In California, I don't know that we're going to see that so much. I think the supermajorities in the state legislature will remain fairly similar to where they are today. But across the nation, I think we're going to have a slight tick to the right. So,
well, fair enough. You heard it. This has been Kristen Olsen, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the Election Recon podcast. Please come back even this year. We definitely want to have you back. And again, thank you for everything. And thanks for being us. Thank you for everything, and thank you for being with us on the Election Recon podcast today.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me on. You guys have a great day.
That was my good friend, Kristen Olsen. Kristen, thank you so much. A repeat customer here at Election Recon. We thank you. It's obviously a busy time for you, Kristen, as it is for all of us working in politics and elections. So thank you for taking the time to spend 30 minutes with us talking about hope, or can we bring it back as a nation? Can we find common ground anywhere? I don't know. I hope. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to negotiate with people that just want to, just want you destroyed. And I think both sides are really, it's at that level. They just want to destroy each other, and that's a dangerous place to be. So I'm hopeful that the pendulum will swing one way or the other. Listen, we're going to go ahead and go into the Grunt's perspective. This is the segment of the show where I get to pick about something that I want to opine about. Mm-hmm. It's the gift to me, where I get to vent about things that fire me up during the week. Mm-hmm. Alyssa, big news here in California, locally to us, an Indian family. I'm not talking about Native American. I'm talking about a family in Indian America, like from the country of India. Mm-hmm. 3 adults, a mom, a dad, and an uncle, and an 8-month, Alyssa, an 8-month-year-old baby kidnapped at gunpoint. It appeared from my, again, subjective. I don't know all the details. I've talked to some local law enforcement down there today about this story. Mm-hmm. But from my eyes, watching what the news has put out there, the tapes, like this kidnapping was pretty much caught on tape. They were walked out of there with zip strips. It looked like a professional hit to me. I don't know if it's cartel related, gang related. I don't know if this family ran afoul of somebody in business dealings. I don't know what happened here, or if it was just somebody who had a mental break. But it looked perfect. It had the feel of like a professional hit, of the likes of what the cartel does in Mexico, of what ISIS does and Al-Qaeda does in the Middle East. Kidnap people in their homes, take them out to a field, and execute them. That's what happened here. It's tragic. It's tragic. Let's go to our local news station, ABC 10 out of Sacramento, who broke this news yesterday when Merced County Sheriff announced the death of the entire family, including an innocent 8-month-old baby.
And we start tonight with breaking news. We have just learned an entire family has been found dead. It is a heartbreaking end to a 3-day search for the family kidnapped in Merced County.
This is gut-wrenching. We have gotten to know the family through their pictures and the stories from their relatives. And tonight we hear from an emotional Merced County sheriff and learn what's next in this tragic case.
Tonight our worst fears have been confirmed. We found the 4 people from the kidnapping, and they are in fact deceased.
Speaking to the public tonight, the Merced County Sheriff announced the update no one had ever hoped for.
There's no words right now to describe the anger I feel and the senselessness of this incident.
This 8-month-old, her mother, father, and uncle were all kidnapped in broad daylight from their business in Merced Monday. Police say this chilling video is a critical piece of evidence. Watch as the suspect, seen here carrying a trash bag, puts it down and flashes a gun. He then goes inside the building where police say there are no cameras, all before emerging with the family of 3 and their uncle. The family is placed in a pickup truck. Hours later, the pickup truck is found on fire.
There's a special place in hell for this guy.
The sheriff says a farm worker found the family relatively close together in an extremely rural farm area. The motive for the kidnapping is still a mystery.
Horribly senseless as to what happened here.
This is the person of interest taken into custody yesterday, 48-year-old Jesus Salgado. Tonight, the sheriff says the suspect has been talking with authorities.
We've got information from the suspect. We're going to keep that close to our chest at this point.
The sheriff didn't reveal too many specifics on the case right now, but says he is pursuing a conviction. ABC 10 talked with the family's relatives earlier this week as they pleaded for help from the public.
For the suspect, what he did was cowardly. There is no honor in taking a 7 to 8 month old, right? This is a little baby. For any American out there, think about your own family.
My husband is a very peaceful and calm person. We don't have any clue that why they kidnapped them.
The sheriff says the family's relatives have been notified, and authorities are reaching out to help give them any emotional or spiritual resources they may need. Again, just so heartbreaking. The Merced County Sheriff says crime labs from the Department of Justice is helping, and he and his team will work through the night processing the scene. Still a lot of facts to gather in this tragic case, and we'll be tracking them.
Here's a little breaking news here on the show. I have it on good authority. I can't confirm it personally, but I have it on good authority from somebody in law enforcement from Merced County, whom I know, that this suspect is a parolee. Should be in prison, paroled early. This defund the police movement, this let's take a shit on law enforcement, this criminals shouldn't be locked up. Listen, I can get behind some aspects of criminal justice reform. Okay? If you're in prison for 8 years on a weed conviction at this point, you should be released. It's ridiculous. Okay? Assuming that you're not a violent jackass in prison. But for these people on the left that are pro-criminal over law enforcement, that are for whatever virtue signaling or race guilt or whatever is driving this movement, crime is out of control in this state. It's out of control nationally, but it's really out of control in this state. Entire business chains, Alyssa, have pulled out of the city of San Francisco because they refuse to prosecute robbery, theft, grand theft, larceny, assault. What the hell are we doing?
We don't know.
I
It's
mean,
ridiculous.
this is the line for me personally. Whatever the reason, this sick human being, evil piece of crap, walked into this business and took this family. I don't know if it was professional. I have no idea. It feels kind of like a professional hit. Maybe this guy had mental health issues and he snapped. Either way, I don't know. But I'm willing to bet by the time this thing is over, and folks, we shouldn't jump to conclusions, but I have it on good authority this guy was a parolee. I would, if I was this family, I'd sue the shit out of the state of California for letting this guy out of prison. I don't know when the voters of California, listen, California is a Democrat state. We live in it. Mm-hmm. Okay. To all my Democrat friends, I tell them all the time, when we're out having drinks, and, you know, you can't be in California without having Democratic friends, outnumbers 3-1. You know, my point is I just don't understand when my Democratic colleagues and friends in this business, I'm like, okay, you're not going to elect Republicans, but for the love of God, can you elect some common sense Democrats with some common sense policy issues who can stand up and grab a hold of their ovaries or their balls to these insane progressive policies on crime? Insane. And I blame the progressive left for this. I really do. And I don't mean that as a partisan. I know it's going to come across partisan because I'm a Republican. But my point is, Alyssa, what the hell are we doing? We now live right here at home. This is not in Stockton. This is not San Francisco. It's not Los Angeles. It's not San Diego. It's not even, my goodness, it's rural Merced County. This is like right out of an episode of Breaking Bad. We live in a time. This is why I own guns. I will never give them up. If the state of California somehow, I don't think it'll ever be constitutionally. I don't stay up at night worrying about my constitutional right to keep and bear arms being completely taken away, further eroded maybe here in California. But listen, folks, this is why I am a concealed carry holder, because I'm a trained professional with firearms. I served in combat. I know what I'm doing, and I trust my trigger finger's reaction time a hell of a lot more than 911. And that's no shot at Merced County law enforcement. That's just the reality anyway. I don't care if you live in a big city. I don't care if there's a cop 90 seconds away. Sometimes these things, what if this guy just walked in there and shot them all right in the business instead of, zip stripping them and taking them to some farm? You want to know why good people and good civilians should have guns, Alyssa? Because criminals have guns and they're doing more and more heinous shit every day. The homelessness crisis is out of control in California. Mental health crisis out of control in California. You and I have a good friend who just 48 hours ago overdosed. Someone we care deeply about. Without warning. In this city that we call home. Mm-hmm. Small town. We just lost a young woman just over a year ago to fentanyl overdose. High schooler. It's out of control.
It is.
All I'm asking for the Democrat supermajority in the state of California, Alyssa, all I'm asking for these Democrats to do is, for the love of God, fucking lead. And being a leader sometimes means telling your own people, your own house, your own base, no. We have to think about what's good for the whole state of California, not just our personal ideological beliefs. That's what a leader does. Sometimes you have to stand up to your own side and say, we have to draw a moral, legal line somewhere because stuff like this happens.
There's got to be a line.
I want to be clear. I'm not saying the Democratic Party murdered these people. Don't take that, you right-wing zealots, don't take that out of context. But my point is, at a 30,000-foot level, Alyssa, I believe in my heart of hearts, I swear to God, that a lot of this evil, heinous stuff, bad, evil things are always going to happen. They've always happened since humans have walked the earth. But there would be a whole lot less of it. We'd be far more safer if we had common sense criminal justice policies put back into place. Bad people should be taken out of society. Evil, murderous, sick bastards like this guy should not walk among the free, law-abiding citizens of the state of California or in the United States of America. What if we find out this guy was an illegal immigrant? This would mark like the 50th murder in California I'm not saying he is. I'm just putting the hypothetical out there because it's all tied in. What have the Democrats done to address the mental health crisis in California? Why don't we have more mental health facilities? There should be mental health hospitals from Redding to San Diego in this state. We're the 5th largest economy in the world. We have hundreds of billions of dollars in surplus. What the hell is the governor of California and the Democrat supermajority owned by the progressive left doing? Spend some goddamn money on mental health crisis stuff. Hell, we have enough money to feed and house the entire homeless population of California in surplus. I'm not sure how long that surplus is going to last as the economy tanks, but my point is, listen, all you voters out there, if you really think the Democratic Party, or, quite frankly, the Republican Party, if you think political leadership gives a damn about homeless people, wake up and smell the coffee. What have they done? What have they done? And listen, it's not a partisan attack. Republicans they don't have enough votes, Alyssa. You know this. We work in the building. We don't have enough votes as Republicans. You're not a Republican, but, the Republican Party does not have enough votes to even vote to go to the goddamn bathroom in Sacramento. They can't pause the session and go take a pee without the Democrats saying it's okay. That's what a supermajority is. The Democrats run the show. The problems that are facing the state of California, who is responsible for them? Who's responsible? I don't understand why Republicans don't have the balls to call them out brutally.
I think anyone needs to be held accountable in a leadership position. It's not fun to be a leader. There's definitely hard moments, but if you're going to be the leader, you have to step up. And it feels like no one is.
Society's soft. That's the problem. No one has the balls to just call it how it is. Because, I'm probably going to be attacked as a racist, a bigot, a right-wing nut job, whatever the attacks are going to come. Heartless. I don't care about criminals. I just want people of color locked up. I do not. In a perfect world, Lady Justice would be as blind as her statue makes her look to be. I'm not saying there's not criminal justice reform that needs to be done. But letting everybody out of prison, this is what you get. Not providing the facilities and the treatment for people with severe mental health issues or drug issues to get the help they need. This is what you get. And we have no idea what this is yet. A guy blasted on drugs. It looked pretty professional, so I don't think the dude was high. Everyone was stripped up. Maybe how do you kill an 8-month-old baby? I mean, what kind of sick, evil piece of nonsense? I agree with the Merced County Sheriff. There's a special place in hell for this guy. Unbelievable. Right here at home. It pisses me off. I'm angry about it. Our local rag, the Modesto Bee, Alyssa, literally gave an endorsement to a local state assembly candidate on the auspices of they want to send someone up there that's going to walk in lockstep with the governor of California in this supermajority. That was their whole premise behind endorsing this woman. She'll go up there and be a part of she'll go with the stream, not against the stream. Well, you know what? I don't know about you, Alyssa. I really don't. I don't think the stream is flowing all that great here in California right now.
Nope. Everyone complains about California for a good reason. But you have to actually make the difference. You can't just keep complaining about it and not...
Maybe we need more fish swimming upstream. Mm-hmm. Putting a check on this power. Absolute power absolutely corrupts. Maybe it's time for the voters of California to take away the Democratic Party's absolute power in California.
I think so.
And that's the Grunt's perspective this week. What say you, Alyssa?
Yeah, I agree. Something's got to change. We can't just keep letting this go downhill. And I think people will see that. It's just, I don't know. We can't just keep voting for someone because they're Democratic or because they're Republican. That doesn't work. We got to be more open-minded people.
Got to be more educated.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Let's go to the three-pointer segment. This is a three-pointer segment where you get to write in and I answer your questions. You can write us at electrecon, singular, electrecon@gmail.com. You go to our website, electionrecon.com, and go to the Contact Us tab. You can DM us at social media. That's Election Recon, at Election Recon. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Or you can comment in the YouTube sections. Our producers will pick 3 questions every week for me to answer. Live on the show, if we don't answer your question this week, we reserve the right to ask it or answer it in another week. If you do email us, must be name and town and state, name, town, and state. If you add your last name, we will cut it off. We will not put your last name up there, but you must give us your name, your town, and your state if you email your questions in to us. However, I'm told, I haven't seen the questions yet, but I'm told there is one question that Jeff picked where that person broke the rules, but there is special circumstance, special penance being granted because it is regarding my Reaction Monday video to Rich Barris and the People's Pundit from Ukraine. So let's start with that one, Alyssa, so we can get that one out of the way because I haven't read the question, but I have seen the considerable hate mail that I have gotten.
Oh, they were mouthy.
The Rich Barris fans let me have it after that Reaction Monday. I was told we picked a real piffy one, so let's go with that. Alyssa, give me the first question. Send me the hate.
Okay, he says, you are a total effing POS for calling out Rich Barris on Ukraine. Who do you think you are? You are scum off his shoe. You effing warmongering neocon POS from Stubble Trouble via email.
You called me a neocon?
Yeah.
Nice. What was his stupid ass name?
Stubble Trouble.
Stubble Trouble. Okay. First off, let me say this. Rich Barris is a grown-ass man. Okay? Rich Barris is a grown-ass man with his own opinions on Ukraine. We have some pretty strong disagreements. He's, more pro-Russia, more America state. I shouldn't say pro-Russia. I don't know. I don't want to speak for him, but it comes across that way sometimes. But he's definitely pro-America isolationist in this situation. He definitely has the belief. I think that's fair to say that his view is, what is America doing here? He believes, he said it recently on a show that I watched, that he thinks America is fighting a proxy war over there. And there's truth to that. I mean, the West is funding and providing weapons for Ukraine. So sure, it's kind of a proxy thing. He really hates Volodymyr Zelensky. Really hates the guy. He thinks Volodymyr Zelensky is a terrible person and an autocratic ruler and all this stuff. And to be fair, if I'm being fair to Rich Barris, Zelensky has suppressed free speech. He has done some things that are questionable. Listen, I've said it. How many times have I said it on the show? I don't believe Ukraine's a perfect country. I don't think we are either. I don't think any Western country is a perfect. Show me a democracy that's perfect, and I'll show you a liar. Okay? Also, Rich Barris and I agree on a great many things, and I can strongly disagree with him, passionately disagree with him on issues of Ukraine. And not every point he brings up about Ukraine do I disagree with. Not every point that I reacted to on the Reaction Monday video did I disagree with him on. But in principle, and I admitted it in the video, I am emotionally and personally biased against Russia. The things that I have personally experienced. And here's the one thing that I will say to you Rich Barris fans out there, which I recognize that I'm punching up. Okay? Rich Barris, and rightfully so, he has earned his following and earned his respect and earned his fan base. And I take nothing away from those of you guys who follow Rich Barris. We're fans of Rich Barris. Okay? So when the guy says I'm scum off of his shoe, I mean we are Mick Foley. He's the Rock. He's the people's champ. We're the weirdos in a mask with a hand puppet sock thing. Okay, we totally admit that. But here's the deal. For 3 years that we've been doing this show, I don't give a crap who. No one. Listen. I fought for this country. I put on a uniform, and even if I didn't do that, I'm my own man. I'll say whatever the hell I want. And I'll believe whatever the hell I want. Nobody's paying me to support Ukraine. No one. This is a conscious decision that I made on my own. I did my own research and I came to my own conclusions. And yes, I will agree Ukraine has a lot of internal stuff to fix if they want to be recognized as a legitimate Western democracy. And when this war is over, a war in which I believe Ukraine will win eventually, whether it's 2 years or 20 years from now, I believe the appetite, just like our appetite in Afghanistan died off, I believe the will to resist will prevail, and I believe Ukraine will ultimately win the war. I do. I could be proven wrong. There's no guarantee of that. Rich Barris is right to point out in his last video that I watched that Russia is fighting this war with one hand behind its back. That's true. Russia could do a full mobilization. I don't know if the Putin regime survives that. But they could fully mobilize their country, and sometimes quantity does matter over quality. I am convinced, I've seen it with my own eyes multiple times. The quality of the Ukrainian soldier is much better than the quality of the Russian soldier. I believe, and it's a shock to me, because on February 24th, I would not have said this. But what I've seen now, Alyssa, I think the quality of Ukrainian special forces is better than the Russian Spetsnaz. The Russian Spetsnaz has been decimated in this war. These are the top of the line. This is like our Navy SEALs and our Delta Force and our special forces groups, our Rangers. These are the guys we spend extra time and money taking them to the whole nother level in elite soldiery. The Spetsnaz have performed terribly. Terribly. I would say the Wagner Group has performed better than the Russian Special Forces units from my personal firsthand knowledge and experience. I have seen multiple battles and engagements with my own 2 eyeballs in Ukraine. And in every one of them, the Russians lost a stand-up fight. in close quarters. That's just a fact. And I would say this to the Rich Bears fans. I have been there with my own. So Alyssa, for everyone out there, we just had this like weird power spike. Everything's shut off. So hopefully the sound's working and all this. As everybody knows, I'm tech stupid. So I don't know what the hell just happened. But my point here is this. I've been to Ukraine 8 times. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've talked to people. I admit that my personal experiences and the things that I've seen the Russians inflict, and I haven't seen the Ukrainians inflict terrible things on the Russians. I don't have firsthand knowledge of that. If it exists, I have not experienced it. I have only experienced the absolute most horrific shit I've ever seen in my life, anywhere. And that was the aftermath of what I saw in Busha 7 hours after it was liberated. I mean, 5-year-olds to 85-year-olds. Tortured, assaulted, and executed. Bodies littering the streets in ways you couldn't imagine. I've seen it. And that, I admit, that puts a strong emotional bias against Putin and Russia in my heart forever. So you listeners, you viewers out there, I completely 100% admit that in my heart I got a lot of anger and hatred for the Russian military and Vladimir Putin. Rich Bears hasn't been over there. To my knowledge. Maybe he has. But I don't think he has. He leans on some folks who I think have their own biases in the situation. I don't know if Volodymyr Zelensky is a great president, but I think he's been a great wartime leader for his country. That's all I know of the guy. I didn't really pay attention to the guy until the war started. From that point till now, I think he's been pretty strong for his country. Some of the decisions he's made, questionable from a Democratic eyes, to be sure, but let's remember our own country has, we literally took most of the Japanese Americans in this country and locked them in internment camps in World War II out of fear that they could be agents or double agents for the Japanese Empire in World War II. American citizens. Well, that wasn't right either, was it? I'm not saying it was like from a military point. Obviously, from our democratic constitutional point of view, that was terrible. Okay, I'm not totally not endorsing it. But from a military mind, fear of will our country exist at the end of this world war. Fear drives people as a motivator, good, bad, or ugly, oftentimes ugly. I'm just saying suppressing the propaganda, the pro-Russian propagandist stuff in his country, not a good free speech thing, not a good look. But in the middle of a war where you're fighting for survival, I don't know. I'm not saying it's right, but I certainly can understand where he's coming from. Does that make sense? I am such a First Amendment guy, but they don't have the First Amendment over there. Is my thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that happened to our country under any circumstance, I'd be pissed. When Trump got banned from Twitter, pissed. Like, it's outrageous. It's just not American. Like, so I agree with Rich that it's terrible, it's bad, he shouldn't have done it. But the guy's got a gun to his head. And as Rich Bears correctly points out, and so many others, Russia could if Russia wanted to tomorrow. So when Rich Bear says that if Russia wants to win the war, I guess they can, because in the sense that Putin could turn Ukraine into glass tomorrow. He can wipe Ukraine off the earth with nuclear weapons in a moment's notice. That's true, but we probably respond in kind. Somehow, some way. It'd be World War III, full on. Then everyone's fucked. So I understand is there. I agree with him that NATO and the United States shouldn't be sending troops there. But we disagree about, whether or not, I think it's a fair debate that this country should have whether or not we should be sending as much treasure and stuff there and stuff. So I don't have any, I want to be clear. I have no problem with Rich Bears having this, but we disagree. But he has every right to say the things that he wants to say. Tucker Carlson, Tulsi Gabbard, Cernovich. These people all have the right. I will go to the grave defending their right to espouse and say what they have to say on this issue. It's no small matter. We have given a significant number of our defense reserves and billions and billions of taxpayer dollars of this country to Ukraine. It should be debated. It should be questioned. It should be held accountable. But I don't know. I wonder, and this is a fair question in my mind that I have not come to a conclusion at. I wonder, Alyssa, if we would have done what we're doing in Ukraine right now in the late to mid 1930s against Germany, whether or not that would have been a smaller price to pay, whether or not that would have been a smaller price to pay in both treasure and blood than what we had to go through in World War II. Mm-hmm. I don't know the answer to that question. As a student of history, military history, and as a combat veteran, I don't know. And I think it's fair to have the discussion. So I'm not angry that Rich Barris disagrees with me. I'm not angry that we have a disagreement at all. Like I said in my Reaction Monday video, show me two people who agree 100% of the time in American politics, and I'll show you two liars. It's our birthright to have these conversations. And I support Rich Barris, Cernovich, Jack, Tucker, Tulsi, whoever. I disagree with them on Ukraine. And I probably always will. But my mind will be kept open. If Volodymyr Zelensky ends up being a dictator and an autocrat, I'll be the first person to jump on here and trash the man. I personally don't think that's going to happen. But we'll have to wait and see. So for you people, and there was a lot of hate, this is what's wrong with America. We have to be able to have a discussion. You know what I'm saying? I didn't trash Rich Barris. I just said I disagree with him here, here, and here. I agree with him here, here, and here. We agree about the Nord Stream pipeline thing. I think he suspects the United States did it. I certainly do. I'm just using Occam's razor. And if we did this, that's bad. I agree with him. It's a terrible thing that we did. You know? So we can agree, we can disagree, we can have conversations. But here's what I will finish with this, because I've gone long. But here's what I'll finish with this. This is a lesson for the mainstream media. I can have a disagreement with Rich Barris and still respect the work that this guy does. Just because we disagree on Ukraine doesn't change the fact that he's one of the best pollsters in the country. Does it? Right? But this is how the mainstream media and partisan zealots everywhere think. They're like, oh, I disagree with you on this one issue. You're evil. You're a terrible person, and everything you do is obviously tainted and evil. I cancel culture. Mm-hmm. It's insane. Like, we used to be a country of great ideas, great discussion, great debate. Our founding fathers used to go to the frickin' Pobunk Wood Splinter Up Your Ass Tavern, drink a pint of beer, and they used to hammer each other. Stevens, Lincoln, they were drinking buddies. They would go to frickin' in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, Illinois, and they would just drink, because that's all you had to do back then, right? There's no other entertainment. Right? They would drink and they would debate the world issues. These guys were political adversaries of the highest order. And they spent their free time just debating the topic. It's as American as apple pie to have strong discussions. And I'll just leave that at that. And Americans got to get back. We got to quit killing each other over one issue stuff. It's okay to have disagreements and debate in this country. Next question.
It's from Sam Sean on YouTube, and he said, never even knew Cali had any competitive political areas. Very interesting in the last couple of episodes.
Name again? Sorry.
Sam
from YouTube. Yeah, Sam, I mean, when you have 54 congressional seats, the most of any in the country, there's bound to be a couple that the Citizens Redistricting Commission fairly divided. So that's a whole debate, that's a whole show in and of itself. California has a problem with proportional representation. That's a huge debate, especially in its state government, where the legislature, both chambers of the legislature, are divided up proportionally. And unlike the U.S. Senate versus the U.S. House, one's geographic apportionment, one's population apportionment of seats. Yeah, when you have 54 seats or whatever, there's going to be some battlegrounds, but that's the overwhelming. This is how Nancy Pelosi stayed in power for so long, is because like 1/3 of her caucus comes from California. I mean, there's so many members of Congress from California. It's hard to get your head around sometimes. So yes, there are. We do live in a fairly competitive area. There are some competitive seats in Orange County, Oceanside, San Diego. But for the most part, the seats here in California aren't competitive, and that's sad, But that's gerrymandering, that's redistricting, that's the world that we live in. The same could be said really across the country. There's not a whole lot of competitive seats. I think maybe like New Mexico is like the only state I can think of where all seats could in a given year be competitive. So is what it is. But yeah, there are a baker's dozens of seats here that could go either way. But the shame for California is in reality, you could conceivably see someday only like 5 or 4 members of Congress from California that are Republican and the rest Democrat. It's not that way for the other side. So, and it's not proportional to the voter registration either, right? It's about 60, it's about, 2-1 Democrats to Republicans. And then, NPPs or independents are right there with Republicans of voter registration in the state of California. So I can make a strong argument that the apportionment of members of Congress that come out of California do not reflect even the strong Democratic voter registration advantage here in California. And we'll leave it at that. Next question.
It says, why is it you guys are showing Republican gains when NPR 538 and Cook keeps showing Democrats winning? From Marcy S. from Des Moines, Indiana.
Iowa. Though they teach you in Waterford High School, man.
Literally nothing.
Des Moines, Iowa. Great city, great state. Good question. I think that all three that she said, Cook, 538, and
NPR 538 and Cook.
NPR. Yeah, all three of those organizations are in the tank for the left, for sure. They're all biased to the left, and Cook Politico, I pay attention. I read their stuff. My entire career, I've been a subscriber to Cook Political. Back when Charlie Cook was running it, Amy Walter, his number 2, is now in charge of it. You have Dave Wasserman that does the House side of things. Listen, they can claim to be nonpartisan all they want. They're not. Look how wrong they were. Look how wrong Dave Wasserman was in 2020. Does that mean he's going to be wrong this year? I think so. But that doesn't mean he will be. And that's why we share his stuff, because we have opposing views. We think we do forecasting better, more simply. I think they overthink things. I think they get, when you get into echo chambers, you buy into, I bet you Wasserman talks to a lot more Democratic consultants than he does Republicans. And the Republicans that he talks to, I bet, are awfully moderate and not representative of the Republican base. And I think when everyone in your elite club of the mainstream media all gets together and tries to say the same thing, you buy into it. I don't know Dave Wasserman. I don't know Amy Walter. I've met Nate Silver a couple times early in his career in 2008. So these people, I don't know the people at NPR. They could be good people. I'm not taking personal shots at them, but just look at the last 4 election cycles and how wrong they've been. Just look at the facts, I think their thumb's on the scale to the left, and they're buying into polls that are continuously and habitually wrong. And I'll end this for the lady's question. Okay. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. At this point, the polling industry and the political punditry of this country, they're insane by the definition. They do the same things over and over again. And listen, a broken clock is right twice a day, Alyssa. Someday it's going to, sometime it's going to be a Democrat favorable year. Mm-hmm. And they're going to hit, and they're going to be like, oh, see, we told you we're the best. We always had it. These right-wing nut jobs and haters out there, and, small Mick Foley prognosticators like Election Recon or all the other ones out there, Ready Go Politics, Rich Barris, these guys are all idiots and morons. At some point there's going to be a strong Democratic year, and they're going to do a victory lap after being wrong 6, 7, 8 times in a row. Just listen, I'm not asking people to believe in what I believe or anything like this on the show. We try, when we talk about our elections projections, it's all data driven. That's it. And when we grade the pollsters, we're looking at accuracy. If Trafalgar could be in some real trouble for us. If this New York thing don't pan out the way Trafalgar says is going to pan out, that's going to hurt them in our ratings for sure. It's just by the data. If it appears to me more likely than not at this hour that Trafalgar could be taking a big L in New York. I just don't believe it. It's just like here during the recall when everyone thought, oh man, Newsom's in trouble. Did we ever think that?
Nope.
No. Because he could lose all upstate of New York. He could lose Long Island. He could win in the 5 boroughs. And that's all that matters. It's like the population is so densely packed in New York. He just has to win New York City, and or that's Kathy Hochul. Our guy Newsom. All he has to do is win the Bay Area and L.A. And that's all. That's the only place he campaigned in.
Mm-hmm.
And he won with 60% of the vote. So my point is this: I'm very skeptical. But man, look at Trafalgar has put out some stuff where in the years past where I'm like, good grief, there's no way, and then he ends up being right. So, and I was actually, because my wife's from New York, and we go back and visit the family, and we were at we're at this really cool building club thing. I don't know, some ritzy ass shit. My father-in-law is a retired NYPD detective, as you know, and we were doing some police benefit thing in a small room. But in the big room, Lee Zeldin was having a rally, with a local Republican Party. And it was packed, and it was boisterous and vibrant. So, I think Lee Zeldin probably does have some juice behind him. I just think the math is really tough in New York for any Republican to win statewide, just like it's really tough in California. And to be fair, Trafalgar still has Hochul up, but it's like 2 points. And I just, if it's 2 points, man, like I said, I will bow down. Trafalgar will skyrocket in our rankings for sure because he'll be right where everyone else is wrong. So, you have to take things with a grain of salt. But to finish up with this lady's questions, let's just wait and see what happens on November 8th. If we're wrong, we'll own it. You can come here and kick our ass. But we've been right the last 2 years, and we're growing in confidence we're going to be right this year. And we still believe that this is going to be a modest to a good Republican night on November 8th. All the fundamentals point to that, despite the ridiculous polling that we continue to see. So, it's really a debate. Do you believe polls or do you believe historical trends and fundamentals? And our model tries to factor in all of them. So, final thoughts?
Nope. I covered them all.
I was a little emotional today.
Happens.
More than most, I think. But it's just been a crazy week, man.
It's been wild.
So, shout out to Rich Barris and Big Data Poll. We love you here, even though we have disagreements on Ukraine, which he's obviously very passionate about. We're passionate about. We don't hate the guy for it. It's healthy that there's people out there. Like I admit, I'm so emotionally biased, Alyssa. It's good that it's why I listen to the guy. I don't turn it off, when he says things I don't like to hear. I listen. Because he may strike on something that I've not considered before. And there's been some things in his most recent episode that I had to think about. I'm not saying it's changed my opinion any, but I think he makes some fair points from a point of view that my emotional biases at this point couldn't see. And so I encourage everybody, open your ears and shut your mouth a little bit more. That's going to be good for everybody. That's it for this week. This has been episode 10 of the Election Recon Podcast. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do it all. You can find this podcast on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you're going to find our podcast. We share, rate, like, subscribe on YouTube. Find us on our social media at Election Recon, at Election Recon. We love hearing from you. Until then, we'll see you next week.